All right, it is 2:02.
Is there anybody on?
No, there was no one online. I think Charles might he was trying to join all of them. He was able to make another one earlier today for a good bit. This is the March 24th Parkview Townhomes meeting.
It's on before, right?
The stockpile.
Yeah, okay.
And we verified the meeting, we probably noticed. And we took a quorum, the two of the three committee members present. And then, John, can I get a call to order?
A motion to, I guess, motion to start today's Parkview Quarterly Townhouse Committee meeting.
And a second from,
Second.
perfect. So, you guys have a pretty easy one here. I think Parkview Townhomes has been running nice and smoothly, I know. Okay, so we have, the real main thing is our CDD GoGov open requests, let's close out updates. We're keep saying that, at least do you have much on that? I know you were just showing me that report.
So Crowa, couple of Crow gave me the CCD report on trees and these. So I read that. So to my surprise, they get to plant them. We get to maintain it kind of thing, if we choose to, right? We could either let it be a jungle, right? Or we could trim it. But if we trim them, we can't do it in a way that could make the trees die.
Exactly, correct, yeah,
And that's kind of what I heard, as opposed to they plant and they should maintain it, right? It's still snow.
it is currently in the document, it is drafted, has been reviewed by Crow Board, is now between Crow General Council and CDD General Council on moving forward on understanding the clear lines.
Is this specifically, just may I ask, about the trees or it's easements, premise of anything?
It's around mainly easement trees and sidewalks.
Yep.
It's looking like it's going to be leaning very evident that any Crow-owned property, the trees and sidewalks, as far as grinding and everything, will need to be maintained by Crow.
Okay.
So where this looks like for service areas, we're staying quiet. Because technically service areas are Crow, then that would fall in suit to that. Luckily, it looks like most of the sidewalk work is about to be completed in Parkview, so that shouldn't incur any additional expenses.
When you pay that in the future, what's gonna be done?
It depends on.
I've seen the crews from CCDD come like across from the club, which were the last building built, had some of the worst sidewalks. They were, a whole bunch of boxes were taken out because of tree.
Yes,
Right.
and in front of your townhomes as well.
And then in front of that first row of buildings,
Yeah, not my side, but
Academy or Artisan West. Yeah.
Artisan West,
Mhm.
right?
up in the front, yeah.
So not to blow anybody's budget in Crow or not, but I think honestly, the idea of you can't grind sidewalks into compliance, right? So what I've seen CCD do is now when it's really lifting up, and I don't know how much it has to be before it's unsafe, right? They take the whole thing out, dig out the tree roots, and then put it back and then fix any damage if there was irrigation, right? We should stop wasting our time and effort grinding, and where it's bad, we take it out, we fix what's ever underneath the tree roots in the box, and spend a little bit more money and do it right.
Yeah.
No more.
So that'll be right now, luckily all of that work in front of your service areas has been done by CCDD. And so we're just gonna wait and see, which is good, because it might end up being in the future, after all these conversations take place, that now needs to be on the ownership of, or
I hope,
Yeah.
I know we don't really have much say, it's Crow, I'll make the decision, but I hope it stays with Crow, even if I'm funding part of the town that I don't live in. I think it's it's a significant expense for a service area to take on, depending on an acreage or the sidewalk space. So I'm hoping that even if it's funded through not CCDD, that it's not funded by a service area, but rather the entire town.
service area.
Yeah, that actually, is that what's leaning right now?
I mean, that would be in the same sense of the easement tree trimming.
There's a tree I could get, the sidewalks, because the trees are so.
I can just.
Yeah, I would expect the trees to be owned, because but a sidewalk is a community share probably versus a tree where you get it in front of your house. I mean, I'm just telling you my subjective
I can
opinion.
understand that.
You know, Jacob, I think well respected, but I hope not, and we're fortunate, so it won't be for
Well,
years, but I really would like to pay evenly for people's sidewalks, because we all share sidewalks and go through communities with trees, I think would definitely be the interest of this area.
Yeah, right, that every, not just your service area is using your site.
And at one time, there was a discussion, I'm glad to hear this, that there was one discussion, I haven't been very active, and you've probably seen this, in this year's finance committee, and I didn't really want to be on it, to be honest, I got pushed into it.
Oh,
Not when you're here, but there's other people at home. But at the end of the day, I was gonna say, so I thought I was told before in prior, you were probably there in the beginning. I thought actually the sidewalks were actually being funded partly by CROA, actually. CROA was paying for, CCDD wasn't ponying up the funds to do that. That's not the case then? It's been all CCDD driving it then? And funding, okay.
Outside of the interior of parks. So if a trail, if there's a park and a sidewalk that goes through the park is evidently not going to be maintained by CDD because that's.
But our sidewalks in front of all townhomes and all private family homes.
Or public family homes for that thing. So my argument would be with, then you're telling me, so anybody, just hear me out.
I think you're right.
Just hear me out. If somebody's house, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is the justification for this. If we had to go, it'd be ludicrous for people in front of service areas to pay for their sidewalk. If people who have private homes don't. If people in private homes have to pay for their sidewalks, then there's not much I can say. But I think that should be a community shared expense, unlike a tree. If someone wants to fix a tree or prune a tree in front of their house, yeah, ideally be the whole community pays for it. But if you're gonna split hairs, the trees are much more logical. I should be paying for my trees to get trimmed versus somebody on the other side, I guess. But sidewalks, I would think would be a uniform expenditure shared by the entire community, whether you're a private home or a public home owner.
There's already a line operating, it would just be an expansion of a line where you're right in the service areas, that's a huge adjustment.
Yeah, and I think it's just even if our homeowners.
Especially just
what do you do when you set up gators?
Have a lot of sidewalks.
Well, and just hear me out, if you start putting sidewalks in service areas and they're owning it and homeowners aren't, now we're opening up the homeowners potentially to lawsuits.
Yeah.
Right, we already have one, you can get sued as a homeowner,
Yeah.
but like you're looking at a lot of changes.
That's going down there, that'll be.
Yeah, but we're probably digress.
I'm aligned with you, I think,
Yeah.
I think.
I'm not losing sleep either way, but I'll be honest with you, I think the idea of paying, we all pay for everybody's sidewalks, and then there's like, cause
And I guess,
how do you enforce sidewalk, that homeowner enforce sidewalk?
We put the sidewalks in across the building, but why isn't, I always thought roads, alley roads,
Right, no
curb sidewalks, streetlights, the drains, the sewer drain, that's CCDD. What happened all of a sudden that those things that, then what are they responsible?
and that is why,
Just getting paid and not doing anything?
and that's why conversations are taking place with
Yeah,
general counsel.
yeah, understood,
Because
I'm
it's
sure that,
that you have a very.
Are they under pressure because building all the bridges here is, where's the pressure to make a change? Is it someone woke up and read the law differently?
CBB is not wanting to fund it the way they've been funding it. They're referencing the governing documents and they're finding that they don't need to fund it. the way
you think, it's probably thank Disney for all that, at the end of the day, it's Disney's club.
That's, I mean, in short, that's what
Well,
it is. So
yeah,
that's why it's with.
Right, I don't mean to cut us off short, but like you said, what's the point? We'll find out when it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
But I hope, Jacob, you're well respected, and I hope
I think what
you
you're
can
saying.
see the idea. I mean,
I think
you're fine, but the sidewalk's concerned because of the fact that they span individual private homeowners. And there's these, well, who owns this piece of sidewalk? Is it a homeowner, or is it a corner, or a service area? I mean, in the service area, it's quite easy to define it, but it's like, when you start splicing hairs, because why would a service area be responsible for salaries of homeowners for? And then when you start talking about homeowners, where is the survey line? Is it here and here? And is it in the homeowner's agreement that they're owning the sidewalk? Is it even in our service area agreement, something,
It wasn't allowed.
And then.
Is that the town built for the
I hope that we can have it go the same direction that you're referencing.
Yeah.
If that, and that's worst case scenario that we are
Stays it.
responsible, that it saves the Hamilton responsibility.
Also, I mean, because it could get, it's
And maybe they're looking, maybe they're looking at just that full out pro home and not, residential, our service, maybe that's what.
Yeah, the reason I think because that way it groups all areas evenly. No homeowner would be responsible indirectly or directly to a service area. The sidewalks are community owned. So we pay somebody pays for it. It's the owners of the properties. So through CCDD today, we get fees, right? We pay the CCDD through a bond or I don't know if it's through a bond or CDD fees, probably CDD
The
fees.
CCD fees at the bottom of your real estate tax bill.
Right,
The top bar is.
right, but we
Fire,
right,
police,
so I gotta imagine somebody's paying this.
library.
Yeah, anyhow, point noted, I hope you guys were able to resolve that.
I think so. I mean, I don't, right now, from my understanding, I haven't seen a lot being brought up of service areas. So hopefully the conversation stays solely focused on Crow Parks. And I think, and then we can just silently move forward where fixes and changes to sidewalks in front of townhomes are taking place.
Or condos, I mean, condos is homeowners and everything. I could not imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably, I would personally litigate this if it came to where service areas had to pay for sidewalks where homeowners were not. Like, how could you justify a sidewalk in my neighborhood being paid for by the homeowners versus I walk down in front of somebody else's house and they're paying for it. I don't want anybody, I want a community.
Right, we walk down where Flaxover comes, back then, and those single family homes, who pays for those?
We might be, I'm pretty, this may be just relevant to Crow owned assets.
I think it is.
So service areas are considered Crow owned assets because they're owned by the service area.
Yeah, and even the sidewalks, who owns the sidewalks, but we'll let the.
I thought it was like that sidewalks were owned by CCD.
I would agree with you on that, but I thought, and I know this for sure, and the finance meeting one time that CCD was pushing back, and at one time Crow was like, sometimes we end up footing the bill because CCD needs so to move on it. That's what I remember in the conversation. This is when you and I were in the finance meeting years ago. We were talking about that, and there was this conversation, very brief, about the sidewalks. But anyhow, it's another day, another story and stuff like that. I'm sure you got other things you want to talk to us. I apologize, maybe you don't, but
It's fine. Yeah, so we have a very light meeting with you, so.
yeah, just before we talk about the work, there's not much, at least from my side. Just one thing, I've written about this before, I think maybe Matt and I've talked about this. Is there any way we can, I know we always want to keep operating funds, but I really want to make sure we constantly keep that reserve fund close to being not behind. So we have like 46,000. Yeah, I mean, there was a discussion through an email with the finance committee that they were thinking about for some areas or all areas, just saying, hey, you don't have to fund that for the last year balance. I don't want us to get in a situation because we deliberately didn't raise our fees this year saying, hey, we have enough money to fund it. So is there any way, I don't know who does this, but we have $46,000. Oh, yeah, in February's financials, we have an interfund liability to our reserve of 46,000. We have 57,000 of cash. Is there any way we can fund like 35 to 40,000 of that unless you see some big cash expenditures that we need? So basically, we're just moving cash out of the operating fund of $57,000 and part of that moving it into our reserve. So it's just moving out of one hand to the other. We've had this 3 or 4 month of reserves we've not paid into our reserve fund.
I'm sorry,
did I lose you here?
you lost me.
Yeah,
Right,
so every month, you know how
You probably still have 2 accountants on this side.
Every month we basically pay a certain amount, right? And of that $20,000, say all 47,000 for 47 townhomes, we're supposed to put $1,300 or $13,000.
Right, so we're saying like, if you look at the income statement.
Yeah, so.
So you're talking about your monthly contribution.
Right.
Actually refunded.
Right.
Reserves, okay.
You know, you said it better than me. We just want to move, there's a liability right now. We have not paid money that's in our operating fund over into our reserve. Can we just move it?
John, so, if you look at February's year-to-date on the income statement, we've made a journal entry of 27,440 or 439, okay, from the operating owner's assessments into reserve assessment. That's subtraction, right? But we actually have to move the cash.
No, I know what you're saying.
It's been just sitting there for months. It's been there, that balance has been there since last year, at least November. I think that's last.
I just think we should move the cash.
You're just discussing the interfund asset liability.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I'm just like.
Yeah, some of the service areas I know had a very large one that they probably couldn't afford. They had maybe 10,000 cash and had 50,000 that you're supposed to move. How can you move 50,000 out of an account or a fund? We don't have any money, right?
Mhm.
But we have almost 57,000. We own 46 to our reserve. I would like to just get that out.
We need to.
Right. If you can either put it all over or part.
And the thing that bothers me just generally, right, is that service areas, Crow, anybody should not be allowed to, if the reserves are to be funded, shouldn't be, this exercise, your financial statement, it shouldn't just be a fake exercise, okay?
Right.
It should actually be every month, you make the journal entry out of revenue and you move the cash every month.
you guys might
And
have
if
this
if you can't tolerate that, that means you didn't put enough money in the top line, owner assessments.
Right, I mean, Jacob, you probably,
Yeah.
heard, I understand, the Crow Finance Committee, we talked about this, Crow get more enrolled in the service areas. And what had happened is every year during the budgeting process, people say, okay, I want my research to go up $5. And they budget and they agree upon it, and then at the end of the year, they said, well, we really can't afford to put 5, let's put 2 in. And that's really what, our auditors said, and I don't know fund accounting as well, you might know, but they always said, if you budget it, you must put it in. So we had budgeted, and everybody else had put that in their budget, and then they said, Crow, basically Finance Committee made the recommendation to Crow, said, well, last year, we didn't all know that, so let's give everybody a pass last year. So if they don't have enough money to put it in, let it go. But I said, I don't want that being forgiven. I want that $46,000 for our fund going into the reserve, because I don't want our reserve to be behind. If we're short, then we should raise the assessment dues, right? We should be covering the problem. And also, the reason I said the last thing is, if we don't put the money into reserves now, 2 years from now, I sell my house, and then there's an $80,000 deficit, I walk away from. And somebody else who buys the house has to now pay my share.
And I want it,
So anyhow,
so if we have a reserve
The issue lies in consistency among the service areas. I think that's really, like, what you're saying, makes total sense to me, but we will, as a practice, it's too much for us to do, treat each one individually, right? So if we wanted to switch the practice, we should switch the practice on all.
I think that's the answer, and that should force all the under-reserved, underfunded service area
well, we might not be able to.
fully up to the.
Yeah, and that's where we're already in line to have these conversations at budget season.
But what do you guys say?
They are, and we have, a couple
But
that
can I
are.
ask you a question? What are we gonna do then with this? Just leave this here forever? We've stated that I mean, all it is an accounting entry. You just get rid of one thing, move something someplace else. But all we end up doing is removing the liability and changing maybe last year's surplus. So it's an accounting entry, but it leaves the cash still in the operating fund. Why wouldn't we just move the cash out of the operating fund and, you know what I'm saying? Oh, it's gonna be an accounting entry, get rid of it, you have to get rid of it.
So, if you get things like, now you come to concerns of, if we were to move that, leaves your operating cash at $11,000.
Yeah, it was $8,000 in November, and nobody had a problem with it. And I said, we'll be okay once we get to the new year, because the way it works.
Yeah, and your funds will always sit higher and.
Usually get, right, people prepay a little bit more and stuff like that, but our prepayments aren't that bad either, if you look at that.
No, they're not set high.
Right. At least let's consider moving some of those funds, even half. That's 46,000 represents 4 months of reserves. Can't we move 2 months worth of reserves? Over? I mean, like you said, they don't want to do one accounting entry, but I don't understand how, if it's our money, why won't we be able to say we want to put it into our reserve? Yeah, just take that back. If we're worried about our
finance, so yeah, our new finance manager is screening right now, hopefully starting next.
I saw the email. So is that other person gonna come in then? Do we know?
What do you mean? Yes, yeah, there were 2. Yes, they
one.
accepted. The other candidate, and they were, it was shoosh, it was splitting hairs after the final interview,
yeah.
which is good. We had 2 really, really qualified candidates. They were just very different individuals. The first one that we went through was denied on a final legal. And the second one has accepted the position on a verbal level, and now they're doing the same screening process, because this, goes through a much more, my position, Lauren's position, and the finance manager, a much harder screening process because of the, being able to touch all the funds, right?
Yeah.
So those was, anyway, they'll probably be approved, and it'll be starting next week. The difference is, this is an on-site finance manager, different than Jennifer has been. So, and the expectation that we have them at these meetings, our quarters and meetings moving forward here, so we can have these discussions and.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think.
Because it's different now, we just say yes, when I'm not the one doing it.
Yeah, as an action, so let's just put it this way, as an action, item, could you just take it back to your finance team? Grant Manus, if you don't mind, Jacob, just ask them to move a few months, 2 months worth of the reserves that we already have paid for that should go into the reserve, which we budgeted for last year that they never put into the reserves, into the reserves. I mean, technically, it's all 46,000 should go in there. If we're worried about our cap position, let's just at least move half of it. That's 2 months worth of reserve instead of 4 months. I mean, I personally understand, we should be normally be us saying, don't move it in, we want to keep it in. we want to move them, we don't want to.
Well, because I don't believe in keeping, when we
They came down the street.
repairs that need to be made, everybody should be paying on an annual basis, quarterly basis, the full amount
Of what the
reserve required
Right.
and a current estimated replacement cost
Yeah.
for all the projects.
Yeah,
And we should kick the can down the road, so when someone sells and leaves us with a deficit, we leave the norm, no.
that's right. That's
You
not-
live here,
And it should
you
be
should pay your share.
fair, yeah.
Equally, that you get trapped into that, or you find some big bill 2 years from now, you gotta pay because, all the publicity in South Florida, all those high-rise condos, where our Arts Park condo or others around here, you get a gigantic bill, so you get a $20,000 special assessment that no one can avoid because you're not in compliance to live there, right? I just want us to fund it so we're not in that position of saying, oh, we're gonna give you all a $10,000 special assessment to do the next roof.
And so, the conversations are so different in other service areas, so.
Well, some of them.
Well, see, the two of us are CPAs and I
Well,
wanna,
that's usually, yeah, I mean, you're fighting to move it into a restricted account.
Right, which is, that's exactly what we want.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want.
If something happened to us,
No, I-
it'll be, but the next
I totally
person, you just
understand.
want to be responsible, right? Especially, I was saying, they're saying, we're controlling something in our reserves, we were the one community that did not increase. Remember, you guys, actually, us too, personally, I was like saying, let's not increase, we have such healthy reserves, and I really feel like a fool if we end up not having enough in reserve for someone. I was the one saying this, and also when we have this money.
you're not, I think the only trouble.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, we're still ahead, I think, on the reserves, to be honest with you, even if we didn't do the finance, this funding, but I do want us to just continue funding it.
I think the only problem will, you can never fully get with inflation in the current environment, what the next roof will actually cost us for 47,000. But the one area we are in my mind, neglectful is that we've never properly put money in the reserve engineers report for landscaping replacement, refurbishment in a substantial way. That now that you have old overgrown stuff that maybe is too leggy or, and needs to be replanted, we have no money for that. We're pulling, rabbits out of hats to do that now, right? And that's where we're underfunded, other than other big items. There are big items, paint job or a roof. So, that we don't know, but it's further down the road, but we should try to keep it healthy and healthy for some landscape replacement, Because people don't like the way it looks, but after we did the tree trimming, guess what happens? It has water and sunlight, the grass is growing. What a eureka!
I know. I'm very, very happy that tree trimming is working for the.
Well, because we had a jungle, to be honest, right?
Yeah, it was not, it's doing much better, it was definitely.
And you know what you have to do, but it's not my call, right, at all. An inspector should, give every single family homeowner a celebration that has trees hanging over the sidewalk and creating a jungle to have them trimmed. Every single homeowner, single family homeowner, because I walk around Artisan Park and I see all the lovely jungles growing where sidewalks would be in better shape, the curb grass would be growing possibly without having to replant anything. If we forced everybody to trim their trees on homeowner sidewalk side. Period.
What are your expenditures this year? It's like 30,000 in reserves.
It's very low. I mean, we don't have really a big one, but we still want to fund everything that we're supposed to be funding, right? So we should really sweep that account. That's why I feel confident. I mean,
It's landscape improvements at 8,000 and irrigation system controllers at 22,000.
that's right. And we probably won't even get to 22,000. We talked at least, I don't know if it was you, Jacob, Denise, or Rose, that we thought that irrigation wasn't even come close. So we're very healthy with reserve. We just want to keep it.
Right, but the that 8820 is the tree trimming.
Oh, from your expense, yeah, sorry, I was thinking if you're,
Is that that thing where I saw on the expense for like landscape or something like that? I was wondering what that, is that? Which one are you looking at? Because I saw an $8,000 number. This is normal maintenance, but I'm looking at some.
Right, we did use some money to do refurbishment of here and there, plant material.
Yes, yes.
So now with the water flow problems, regarding,
Yeah.
or
I mean, we
work.
have 30,000 expenses and we have about 120,000 of $140,000 of income coming in. So we're very healthy with reserve for now.
No, you're right, you're still sitting in a good, I mean, I think you're ahead of where you're supposed to be anyway.
Yeah, we are, but the big roof, like paint for the big ones, and the roof ones,
Yeah, coming down.
if you didn't know, we financed our roof last time. We, the only community that did that. I asked Rose, is there any way we could borrow 100,000 from Phoenix? We think we were nice enough to act, yes. We got all of our buildings done, Matt, for an extra building done for what the first round did. I wasn't on the committee at the time. They did 4 buildings for $1,000,001. We did 5 buildings for, I think, 5 buildings for $1,000,000. And actually, just speaking of roof, I did notice that we had a couple of homes. Are we done fixing roofs now at this point? There were some work orders for roofs and some, we have nothing budgeted for them. We spent about 15 to 2,000.
No, that's.
Of that.
Because of those. Then you have solid things.
Oh, yeah, socket damages.
In order to work.
Yeah, they would either, they were, I saw Pete's came off, he blew up. They would fix one of my socks, like literally, just, but they literally got blown out. They were gone from the hurricane, you know, that plastic thing that's under the roof of
Oh,
solid.
there's not, wasn't it, these, yeah.
But the roof,
Slack one.
yeah, you know that little thin piece of.
Plug it was square, I mean, it's just missing.
Sorry, you got these. Is that what that roofing is for, basically Milton related?
Yeah.
Damage?
Year one was an issue with a dryer vent that was, roof over, so that had to be resolved.
Any other,
We discussed all roofing work orders have been completed.
Good.
And payment of it,
okay, good, so we're on top of that.
as far as all invoices received.
Yeah.
We are not, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other things that you guys ordered that outside of, I mean, if you look at expenses, primarily it's landscape related, but are there any other unexpected expenses that you foresee in the next 3 months that we should be aware of as a committee?
No,
Okay.
these are just the 2 estimates that Rose sent an email about, for landscaping, that she only heard back from Mr. Lander.
Oh, that's weird, because I replied, somebody said they didn't hear back from me, I said, I swear I sent a response, and I sent a second response, is that the one where the landscaping, where you guys are doing 2 things for like $3,000 or $4,000?
One is for 2,125, and the other is.
Where's it?
And they were were these border-proof ones?
Yeah, I think we had to move.
These were just sent by Rose to the press.
Oh, these are new ones.
These were revised, these were done back in 2024, but it was never, he never proceeded. with
There was
it.
one called that Tagliani, he complains a lot, and then again, and I was like reluctant, because I want to make sure that whoever needs it gets it. It's not the loudest guy getting it, sometimes that happens, but we want to make sure. But Rose wrote back, or you did, Delise, saying, hey, it is pretty much a need. I said, okay, if he needs it, then let's do
But
it.
these units, yeah, that unit, the one.
This estimate.
Okay. Then I apologize, I just replied back, I said it was okay then, did I not?
It's like what I got paid, so.
That was another hundred ground.
Okay.
This was Rose's copy that she
Okay.
got here.
And the underground for test may be different now that we've seen curb grass growing.
I still.
It is, you still want to do the.
By the Austin
I
towns.
don't want to say anything, just take a drive by Austin, there's a couple areas, not just Austin, a couple areas, it's been said. Yeah, it's a little bit up from you, actually, I thought it was right in front of you, it's a little bit up to the right of your house, but there is green growing there, a few spots, but it's 100% weed. I think honestly, at the end of the day, I don't know if the light might help a little bit, but I think intrinsically, that is sand, and it's hard to get grass to grow on sand. When you have to sod and you're just setting sod on sand. I'd love to be retired, and just dig it up myself and do it the way I've done sodding before in the Northeast, at least, the way it should be done and stuff like that.
We
But
are, there's been a new string of St. Augustine called Citrus Blue that we've been trialing in different areas and it has taken very well. So if you are at, South Village Townhomes in the back side of Spring Park, there's one set of townhomes there, we're close to the corner,
Oh, is it the one right across from the park itself?
right across
Yeah,
the
those
park.
4 or 5
And
times.
in the elementary school.
Yes.
It's all shaded like crazy over there.
Yes, and there's a section you'll see next to the in unit,
Mm-hmm.
furthest from the school. It's about 1 building worth where we put in
That
the
you talk about.
fall. We put the Citrus Blue St. Augustine, and it's a very shaded area, and it has rooted extremely well.
Oh, that's
We
good.
put that in at Long Meadow, along the edges,
Mhm.
that has a bit more sun. It has rooted extremely well. We've resodded the perimeter of Savannah with that, and it is rooted extremely well. And now we're going back and doing the warranty work for Savannah Square Townhomes and putting that
It's
in there. So right now, the demo's been completed at Savannah Square Townhome easements, and the sod will be installed this week or next.
gotcha.
So we can see how that does in their easements, where they're also very high shade.
Is that also being soldered and installed with Exquisite?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So we had approved two, one in front of Matt, one in front of Austin's, and it was for what we call ground covering, which probably I assume is not sod, but right? If we can get sod, I assume sod is cheaper. If you think in your
Sod's
opinion,
cheaper.
Jacob, that will do the job, then let's just go do the cheaper stuff. Or if you want to do a small spat.
Yeah, I'm on a, yes.
I know you don't want to feel bad and tell us to do it, then have.
Well, there's no, I mean, the thing about ground cover, especially in easements, is it, while it does have a long-term good effect, it does have, the yield rate's not 100%, right?
What's ground covering behind us? What do you guys put in there, Jasmine?
I'm pretty sure is that jasmine. Yeah, which, and then we're not doing the Asiatic jasmine install anymore because it's been failing and replacements haven't been
So,
working.
Who wants
So
to
it's
do
been
money for
Confederate jasmine, which is a much more bushy jasmine, so it's taller.
How
And
tall? Do they
when
turn
it's-
it this tall?
So when planted, it's about this tall.
Oh,
And then,
wow.
and then it grows a little taller until the weight of it pulls it
Oh,
down. But then it still sits taller than the Asiatic jasmine that you're seeing. and
Right,
like,
totally. It's like
this next thing you walk over.
Yeah,
That's my issue on it, is you really can't walk through it.
yeah, we don't want people tripping and falling and get another lawsuit.
And it's more expensive. And you
So
just,
then when you can buy this new grass in those shady areas.
especially now that you have the true, yes, I mean, with knowledge that you just keep your canopy trimmed so it can get some sunlight, don't.
What would, if I can just ask you really quick on that, if we did ground covering and it failed, is there a warranty with Brian on that sort of stuff? Because it's really not in his control.
No, there's 90 days. Yeah, if he's your landscape provider.
Right,
then
he is.
that is 90 days. Sod is only ever 30 days.
Okay, that's what that's in the sod side, okay. So are we able to make that switch or do you have to bring it back?
No, we haven't, that one hasn't moved through yet, so
Yeah.
I think we can.
Is there a reason why we've been delaying on it? It's good that we have because of this new situation with the side. Is it because we just want to see if the tree being covered?
Correct, I wanted to see
Okay.
how that
So,
helps.
yeah, if you guys want to take a walk by there anytime, it's still pretty heavy sandy. I've seen it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've kind of grown used to it.
Do it
It's
better.
not gonna, in my opinion, Matt, I want you to disagree with me. In my opinion, it's never gonna fully grow out the grass. There's a couple weak spots, at least in front of Austin, and I've seen your area, it's still pretty sandy, but Austin,
Yes,
still, it's 99% sand still.
So,
Yeah,
no, nothing's gonna grow in if we don't do something. I think you're right. Like, just because we allow sun doesn't mean it's gonna grow.
Without the sun, it would be a waste of money, because it's.
No, I wouldn't. I'm only considering this now because of seeing how that area. is-
Yeah, if you feel comfortable, Jacob, if you feel comfortable based on what you see, then please make the modification. If you want to wait a little bit longer, I mean, we wait a long time. I'd like to get that area, those areas patched. Just
Yes, I
excited. But, yeah, if you
Not
guys,
sound personally affected, but
yeah, when were you guys planning on doing something to our area? What were you thinking, Delise? Were you thinking about in the next couple months,
It would be
next couple
within the
weeks?
next few months, yeah, because then you have pressure washing coming up as well.
Were you gonna do the pressure washing first and then do the land, or land, then the pressure?
We are aiming to start in April, right after Easter. But
The pressure wash?
We're gonna make sure that our schedules go side by side with Exquisite so that they're not planting. and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, we'll give you a notice.
Alright, so we're talking about, probably by May, you should expect some action on this. In terms of, right, because now we're in March.
Yeah.
April, May.
Well, we need to get, so I'm going through the parks tomorrow with Brian, and I think we can talk about that section that he's done.
Yeah, take a look at it too, you can make a judgment what's gonna grow or not.
Yeah,
Nothing.
and to see if it's better to do the sod. I think it might. I mean, I know that
it's
it
shady side, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd personally rather do the side, one, not just because it's cheaper, but it's consistent with what everybody else has got.
It's uniform, it's less trip hazards,
Yeah.
and now that we're finding that, it's, I guess it's two factors, right? One, we found a sod that is doing well in our community in shaded areas. And two, your project to open up the canopy to allow light has been proven it's doing well for those same areas.
Yeah.
So because of those two, I think you're right. I think we should look at, and I still think the right approach though isn't let's do the whole street line, let's start in this target section. Because at the end, when you go down Flagstone, you hit Craftsman and you look.
You get a lot of sun.
Yeah, who's that last unit right there?
Yeah, I know who it is. So on one side it's Richard and then new Richard on the other side.
Yeah, Richard's yard, which is all.
I heard it's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. That one I'm a little more concerned about though, because that tree that, the main canopy is up the road, is on the roadside and still there.
Mhm.
So like, I don't know if it's best to do this situation there yet. I think we try it.
Not that my son
Smaller.
watches that all the time, Austin. He said, Dad, I'm telling you, it's not just the sun. There's a fundamental problem with the soil. It's the same.
Well, when you put the sun down, they have to put a little preparing the sod to soil content with sand and so.
I don't think at least in the last installs I've seen, you weren't around necessarily either. You guys might have been around. Matt, I'm not sure if you remember. They literally came out and the sod has a piece of soil on it, but they just threw it on the ground and and it all died, by the way. If you did not know that, all the sod that was installed on the last one died. Nothing took.
I know, I think.
And I don't even know if we got our money back for that.
No, a portion of that was by the roofers too.
Oh no, that was so long ago. This was after the roofers that came. You might not have been on the board, Matt. There's Mark, myself, and John, John Ford authorized, and you definitely weren't here at the time either. Some sod to be done. I don't even know if the lease was here at the time. So we put sod down across the street from us, those greenish colored towns on Artisan Avenue East, some areas, some over in the Austin areas, and they all died within 30 days. And, nothing was put back down over it. Probably rightfully so, because it just died
Well,
again.
you know what I would also say is if with that other homeowner on the other opposite side from me on Flagstone, that other end unit. When I saw how big the trees were, when Jose from PTC was there, I always said to him, Jose, fix the street side, because nothing's gonna ever grow there, right? Just straighten it out, right? Because that's why I'm irritated with CCDD. We did our part. Okay, you say you're not gonna do the homeowner side. Come on, work with us and let's do your side, especially where it's really deeply hanging over the street to get all of the natural light that it should have and hurricanes, right? Let's do it. Oh, we're not on the list this year, right?
So does that mean, because you guys mentioned at the beginning of CCDD's talking Crow about it, that they may not end up doing even what they said they're gonna do next year because this falls within this window to negotiation? Right, because there's
No, I'm gonna say no, because that schedule is the schedule that they're currently operating on is very much only their scope. And
okay, they concur that they will do that next year, and then
I would say that scope doesn't look like it's changing
Okay.
with the current conversations for changing the council, so I don't see that schedule would change.
okay. What do most people, I know Matt went to the meeting, I couldn't because of a work conflict, but is there any general consensus of how people are doing or what people are doing to improve their landscape situation? They aren't either happy with the landscaper.
As far as homeowners or service area?
Service areas. There's a service area meeting that you guys had at Town Heritage Hall.
Yeah, a lot of this, the main issues with the sod were from Savannah Square townhomes. And that's.
Yeah, I was just saying in general, it seemed like from the,
Trees were a big discussion,
okay,
which was, which were the trees, that communication, army structure of meetings,
okay, but basically the landscape, but so there's,
and
In
a
terms of-
large amount of time was spent to explaining funding reserves and how reserves work.
yeah, okay. Yeah. So, we're all over the place, but I guess just so we can.
It's fine.
So the big thing is see if we can get at least a couple months of our cash moved over into that. The other thing is your call. I would prefer side just to be consistent. If we can do that in that area, even if there's a few extra bucks that we budgeted 3,000. If it costs a little bit more money, just hear me have to put a little bit of layer of dirt in there.
Yeah.
Dirt does cost money. I know it's not free, but if they could till it up and put a little layer of dirt. Dirt makes a huge difference. I'm telling you, I wish I have a picture of my house in Pennsylvania. It is Pennsylvania, it's different, but this is direct sun and nothing would grow there. And I tilled it. I put 20 tons of dirt in there, and then put seed in there, not sod, but it was like, you couldn't go through. Oh my, God, I killed myself, I couldn't mow there, it was so thick. But dirt is important, if you put good quality dirt down, it really helps that soil, and if it's on sand.
So Brian needs to have, like, to just prepare the area
Properly, right, because then also that will prove to us, hey, if we ever have this problem again, let's spend a few extra dollars preparing the soil before we just.
So, and John, there's one of the problems that we have when we do this, Jacob, and that is, if you look at the trees in the East End, the roots are like varicose veins, you get my analogy, right? So the roots need to be shaved. So then if you shave the roots without killing the tree, and you put a little topsoil on the ground, and then you put this new grass, it will take much better, right? But if you leave those gigantic roots just popping up like varicose veins, you're not gonna accomplish much. You accomplish with this less roots, right? And you more with this less roots and less or nothing. Because there's so many different things.
I know root shaving is a hard item, but yes,
Why is it important?
because it goes against that jeopardizing that tree.
Yeah.
Because if you shave the roots, you can jeopardize the health of the tree
Well,
and the tree.
That would be advice, so I would say you need, have to get Alberto, I know well, right, to come take a look. Can we do any of that to help give the grass that we're gonna test? And I
We usually would consult with certified arborists for anything regarding the trees and shaving, because some roots we can.
would be nice to
I haven't really been seeing,
Or
okay, answers, no, like anytime somebody's asked and we've looked, they say, you can't, you'll jeopardize the health of the tree. And then that means you either just have to remove the tree or live with the roots.
You know, the other thing from a removal of tree, so if right where Artisan West ends, right, and it turned to me, the very first tree, there's a whole forest of little baby oak trees growing that looks like ground cover, right? So I asked Alberto when he was at my house, and I said, what do we do about those things? If we cut, or even Brian said it to me, if we cut those things out, you'll damage the roof. So maybe the only way to fix that one, that whole tree should be removed with all that crap taken away and a new tree planted, so it would be properly planted without all these little seedling oak trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, I've seen that, it looks horrific over there. And
Yeah,
when we switched,
Yeah.
just exquisite, it came.
They come from the root of the tree itself.
Right, but it used to never be there. So I suggest, I mean, in Pennsylvania, I had this guy who's from Brazil, he had 1,000 trees along my tree line, and they were doing this. They were going all the way to my house, these invasive trees, and I just run over them, and there was like that. And it's not good. It didn't kill the trees, but I don't know before then what, if it was Infomark or who we used, but they were able to keep that under control. But as soon as we switched to exquisite, all of a sudden it just, boom.
And those little tree seedlings are worth right now.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
if you've seen it, it looks not
Because you
good.
cut them
I know, it's not, yeah.
Right.
Sometimes those type of trees comes out of the.
Well, so
Yeah,
we should get rid of the tree, plant something.
but it's weird, we never had that issue with that tree before now.
I know it's there, it's touched, you know.
Yeah, and you said, I mean, I walked by your house, I remember all of a sudden I said, they're not cutting it, and then I
I'm
got
gonna need to get my own hacksaw out there and
so we talked about the grass, May, we hope to see something, or expect to see something done, was at 2 areas, hopefully grass, maybe a little bit dirt. We talked about the interfund liability, you guys have told me we're done with the roofing things. You said for this year, we got 2 expenses, irrigation, and then, what was the other one? It was landscape.
we don't know, we're not spending, but you
$8,000
have
landscape.
place controllers.
Oh, we don't think we're gonna, but in our reserve, right, so that's good for us.
So if we use some of that money from that
It's,
to pay for the tree trimming.
yeah, exactly. So we're
Yeah.
under, I think, on that. The last thing probably, because we're running out of time, and Matt's either talked to those guys, you talked about is the railings and the portion of the survey. We really, you guys, truthfully, Martin wasn't able to sign it, but he wrote an email, left me a voicemail, we've all communicated. We really don't like the idea of having a survey done with an engineer, because that can get expensive for maybe not such an expensive thing. So what we decided to do, if you guys acquiesce, and I'm just taking Matt's word as plagiarizing, what he said is that we should probably take a small sample of the homes that have complained about it, if you want to call complaint or just raise a concern, see what the need is. Ideally, it's just.
And let the engineer do
railings.
I think I like that, I'll pass that up, I think we can probably move forward with that.
Yeah,
we can move
That.
What was the engineering? Did we get the invoice on what the
We
engineering,
have from one,
and what was the cost for the engineering to do it? Do you know? You don't have to give me.
was it high enough that we needed to get more quotes?
Oh, really?
Because it was over 10, I guess.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we absolutely do not want to spend $10,000.
I'd rather put 20,000
Lump sum.
You know, right?
on actual work.
Right, just replace everything, not even have that.
That's why I said a sample. We'll learn what we need to learn from a sample of three. So we can get Martin's house, we can do your house, we
Yeah, I
can
mean,
do my old
My
house.
thing for me is my floorboard, I know is disconnected.
Well, you know what?
I heard 4,000.
How many?
4,000.
Oh, it's not as bad as I thought, but it's still right.
4,000 we may have looked, and I think that's because they do, from understanding from litigation, there's a engineering that we're doing in a different service area. Again, they basically are doing what you're wanting. They're not gonna, they don't go to everyone because they, by
Looking at
having
the
a sample.
that's the time needs to be done from a
Because they treat
That's why
that.
that tracks, that makes sense to me. Only in the case of if it's severe damage and before they find, then a change order will be needed to assess all because.
Or more.
Yeah, or more, yeah.
Right.
This is a lump sum of $4,000 to visually inspect the elevated balconies, exposed columns, beams, railings at the 29 second floor town hall balconies. All other areas and buildings within the community are not included in the street park.
So to summarize, Jacob and Delise, you guys probably are aware of this, but I want to make sure when I'm saying this, that you concur, I'm not right. The primary complaint, other than my one complaint, my floorboards have actually come detached. It's just
Probably
now.
because the clips that they used to put down track decking, I bet you the ones the builder used originally were not stainless steel. Martin's handyman said, I only use stainless steel, and stainless steel doesn't rust. So they probably lost their
They've rusted through, it's rusting off.
through it. So if we replace them with stainless steel track brackets, that should fix the problem, because I don't think the tracking is bad, it's those brackets, they attach it to the.
Right, and I would say we may not have to fix
Yes.
it would be just the end ones probably, because the chances are, like, my end ones are coming off. The end ones, I
Well, that's where you need to look at, it's the brackets, and I'm willing to bet it's the brackets
Yeah.
and then
But
not
but
stainless.
besides my complaint on the floor, is that everybody else's complaint, the railings themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's just the railings. And railings are defined, is the railings just the posts that go in between, or the handrail itself, or both?
To me, the whole thing, right?
I'd assume the whole thing.
Okay,
Right, and I understand from people who built additions and had balconies, that you could buy the railing system in track material
right.
instead of crappy wood. So that, because it's a fiberglass wood combo, it will stand up to the elements of flooring much better.
Yeah,
You have that, so that though would pull from your reserves. Was that a line item in your reserves?
it was. I thought our portions or railings or decks or something like that. There's something in this.
Okay.
What was the total amount on that, Delise? You know,
This, is it the railings, metal, paint, finish, capital repairs phase? It is 11,000,
Each year?
One, yeah, so it's 22,000.
Yeah,
But they would do half like roofing, half in one year, half the next.
right. So what we could technically do,
You could do the whole project next. if you want.
right, or
I would do it all of them.
Or let me just ask you, do we wanna just find the ones that are problematic and change, or do you think we should just change them all?
When we, since this would come as a service area phase item,
Uh-huh.
we would have to assess it in its entirety.
Okay, gotcha.
We could not select.
So- My whole point is if we decide, because we are healthy in our reserves, because we really do, I know, or at least unless we spent 90,000, we're like 90,000 ahead. If we ended up pulling this in a little bit earlier, because we're not gonna spend probably 22,000 on the irrigation man, right? Our irrigation's pretty decent.
Brian,
Brian,
the last time I talked to Lauren,
right,
that we would likely need irrigation controller changed for us.
right, so what I was going
And
with,
that's all meant
No, you're-
the possible water.
We're expected by the
Right, actually,
start of 2025 to be at 275,000. So you're currently not 90,000, but you're 20,000.
that's how we are. Is that after the new reserve study was done, is that why?
Yeah, you're probably gonna be able to reserve setting.
And does it include the 40 or almost 50,000, I don't know what kind of accounting centers, does that include the 50,000 that hasn't been put in? Because at the end of the year, we
That's
put
what you just looking at the cash and tax advance.
okay, and that's good, because that makes sense, I figure we burned in 2024.
You're correct.
So we brought 70,000
of that 294 in the
Right.
But you're right, if you take that.
Let's say it's 40 of the 50.
If you take 600 at 340, so you're,
Like
Yeah.
70.
however, don't pull too much based on your contributions, because what's your allotment this year? What's your total contribution you reserve set up?
13,000 a month times 12, so that's 120, 130, 150, 45,000 approximately.
Now you want to be careful. But your, this, that's,
Is that, what do they
the beginning
recommend?
balance of next year should be 420,000. You'll be there.
Really? Wow. Can I just look over your shoulder? I looked at
It's your reserve setting, you're fine, Jim.
So
That's
what are they putting in as the annual contribution that they're?
160, almost 170,000.
Okay, yeah, we definitely are not at that.
You're not at that level yet, no.
Yeah, I think
There seems to be a large deduction next year.
is that painting though?
I think it probably is your painting, because that sounds about right.
Paint.
Yes, your paint project started, that's why.
That's fine.
that we do want to move forward.
Repainting all the town.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have a large change order in for the units that have those concrete brick walls that are showing
Cracks.
bad cracks. I think they have a
Are there
lot of-
cracks in? I haven't asked.
I'm seeing this in a few, Battellini, actually the one I'm at. I think over the time, so there's cinder blocks, right? And
Yeah.
they were sealed at the top, and I think the seal has failed on them, so water is entering the cinder
Was
blocks.
he serious? I didn't even know he has that issue. So just so I'm clarified on this, the green wall he's got is all stucco, right? And then there's a wood roof that sits on top of the stucco and stuff like that. You're saying between those 2 points, there's cracks and water's coming into the cinders that way, or am I not understand what you're saying?
For your privacy walls.
Oh, behind
Yeah, but that guy, okay, the one you're talking about, the end house by the jungle on Partisan East, he somehow not took the privacy wall and built a screen cage structure that sits on top of the wall. It
And
should
you're-
have never been allowed. It should be removed.
I mean, I think some people do that, but do you feel that it's
It's NG in my opinion.
right? Do you think by installing that, it kind of structurally changed the integrity of the wall, the structures and all that, in your opinion?
That's gonna be a set, because, well, I went on site, because he was thinking that wall should be fixed by the service area. I looked at it, I said, this can be fixed inside your paint cycle. Outside of your paint cycle, like it is now, you want it fixed, it is on
You
the
painted, yeah.
At that point, it did not look clearly evident that that issue was due to that, and I'm also seeing that issue
Enough,
elsewhere.
so is it actually a crack in the, I mean, I've seen where the stucco will crack over time, you get these hairline crack, but are you saying he's got a big crack in it and it's
There's a mixture, well, on the top, they either need redoing on the top section or some of them on the sides, and that's what's causing bubbling of paint on the sides, because water is entering through the top.
But you know what the problem is?
So we gotta look at that, because we don't want them people to be like, oh, the paint's bubbling, it's a bad paint job, when it's not a paint job.
Right.
It's a wall issue.
Because you know what the problem is? So when Vice Painting did the last job, right? I saw the guys from them, because originally, before they did that paint job, the top of the stucco of the privacy wall was completely flat.
oh, we're talking about the privacy walls? I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
So we're talking about the physical wall that's 6 to 7 feet tall.
Right.
I was thinking you guys were talking about the wall, the house that has, between each unit, that wall is really concerned.
No.
Okay, so that's talking
Privacy
well,
wall.
I've seen those cracks, now I know what you're talking about.
But the problem is,
Are you guys finished at 3?
yes.
Okay, sorry, I just didn't want to.
the problem, James, the problem, we're almost on walls, is before Vice painted, the top of the walls were flat, so the water sits. If you let the water sit for too long.
Right,
you
they
get
have
the-
this layer. on
Yes,
top.
but when they did, at least they come on.
So this is an old issue, that's why, and so there was already some work to address it without large.
When I rebuilt my new
I'm
wall,
looking at it as this next paint cycle might see some large rebuilding of some of these walls.
Alright,
Which needs to come out of that.
so you really need to pull cinder, it's not just the top just fixing the top, you think actually cinder has to come out?
I don't think the entirety of the walls, but 12%.
You might have, you might have to open up and re-cement, and then it has to be curved.
I
So the
don't
water
think
drain
it's
is
going to be, it's larger than just a paint job for those
Yes.
places where you might, that's just something to watch.
But I can tell you, in my personal units, the whole top of the wall, when Vice was doing it, right, was curved on the top, so the water, they added a whole layer of concrete,
Yeah.
and then they stuccoed it, and then they painted it, and the water runs off. And when they built my new wall, they truly did the same.
In terms of the railings and all that.
And they built a
Put on
new wall,
pause for now.
they put a lot more
Engineering, so we don't spend
concrete
just
and
consider-
steel
we
lines
considering just.
in the wall, and I make sure they built
For all units.
there.
No, they'll still,
And then-
they'll still have.
And then they curved the concrete on top,
Because
and then stuccoed it, and then painted
rotting issue on some railings. So because it is rotting issue, we don't know how deep rotting, how that goes.
Yeah, but it's a
But
railing, railing on the railing, it's not a post per se, it's just the railing, it's a 50-cent railing, it goes across this way or this way, is it not?
I don't think, I think it's the railings, because the railings were wood, Jacob.
Yeah.
The-
Yeah,
the
I want to avoid the engineering study if we can for 4,000, if it, I don't
You're
know,
probably not going to be able to avoid some engineering.
can't we just replace everybody and not even do an engineering?
I think we can keep looking at it.
Yeah, because I prefer
Well,
not,
now, let me, can we?
I don't think it's gonna be-
guy, the problem with the engineer is he's not gonna do any construction work, it's not like he's gonna look it over and get the work, construction work.
right, if he looks at 4 units for $4,000, that doesn't sit well with me.
Well, right now, he's looking at every unit for 4,000.
I thought it was some units.
So why don't we, what's your price?
How many units?
29 units have rain.
Oh, railings, you're right, I'm sorry, we have to the units,
That's right. So it's looking at all of them, all of the balconies for $4,000.
Okay, it's not just the
Maybe
railings.
get a better price, you say, we want you only, we want you to do only 4 until you see systemic problems.
Yeah.
Then come back to you guys and we'll go from there.
Or even 25%, so you can get that down to
Exactly.
$1,200.
Right, then I feel better about that.
Yeah, and we can pick the 20, the 12, pick the
Well,
worst
we
one.
can pick, listen, the one I need, my old unit is part-time, I have to fix. So at least it's constructed. You already told me to buy rail,
Yeah,
right?
and I think that's fair. I mean, I just,
When you pick,
because of the elevation of this, you're gonna, we probably will say you have to have.
I get it.
Yeah,
I-
sorry, it's not to say having us go up there, I was just saying, okay, we know we're gonna have to replace everybody's railing, right, because that's what we said, you're gonna do them all, and now we do 3, you're gonna do them all, but let's just skip the engineer, replace, and save ourselves.
I guess in the off, what Jake is saying, in the off chance is something our untrained guys will miss. We should at least do a sample of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, if he's willing, like you said, to do a small.
As I said, let me put, Wayne, you and I can understand that, right?
Yeah.
Would you take an in-house counsel, legal letter, you should go to the outside legal,
Yeah.
lawyers?
making a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn. Second.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys in 3 months or less. Anything else?